You are old, Dad. Your bricklayer mentality is out of style. Give me the company or die of old age with your money. That was the birthday wish my only son gave me in the middle of the most luxurious party in Chicago to celebrate my 60th year. What did they think I would do? Cry? Beg? Or give in because my daughter-in-law used the grandson who is not even born yet as a hostage? No. I did something that no normal father would dare to imagine. In a matter of 24 hours, I turned the Prince of Chicago into a homeless man. I took away the luxury cars, the mansion, the black credit cards, and even the prestigious last name he always bragged about. But the craziest part was not that brutal punishment, but the secret plan I reserved for my ambitious daughter-in-law, the person I despise the most. Fasten your seatbelts, because what you are about to hear is not a cheesy family tragedy. This is a cold and ruthless war to find the true heir among the ashes of family ties. And I bet you will never guess who the final winner will be in this chess game bathed in tears. People often say that the peak of loneliness is not being alone in the desert, but being in a glittering hall, surrounded by hundreds of people toasting to you, yet feeling an inner cold, as if you were in the middle of a Midwestern winter. That was the night of my 60th birthday. The Grand Hotel in Chicago shone that night like a diamond. The crystal chandeliers, valued at tens of thousands of dollars, illuminated the expensive evening gowns, the custom-made suits, and those perfect social smiles. I, Daniel Reynolds, president of Reynolds Construction Group, stood there with a glass of champagne in my hand, smiling at the praises. Congratulations, Mr. Daniel, the man who built half of Chicago from the rubble. A living monument. A legend. They called me Legend, but they did not know that this legend had his eyes fixed on the main door, waiting for two familiar figures. Michael, my only son, and Emily, my newlywed daughter-in-law. The clock struck 9 in the evening. The important speech was about to begin. I had prepared for this moment for the last 5 years. Tonight, in front of all the partners and shareholders, I plan to officially announce Michael's incorporation into the board of directors as executive vice president. That was the birthday gift I was giving myself. Peace of mind about my successor. The great doors burst open. Michael entered, but not with the dignified bearing of an heir. He was stumbling with his tie undone and his face red from alcohol. Beside him, Emily, in a dazzling red dress, but with a face full of confusion and resignation, tried to hold her husband up. The entire hall went silent. The melodious music of the orchestra stopped. All eyes turned toward the door. "Michael," I whispered, feeling as if someone had just crushed my heart. I quickly stepped down from the stage, trying to avoid the imminent disaster. "Son, you are late. Go rest a bit in the room. You are drunk." Michael slapped my hand away, a blow so strong that it made my wine glass spill onto the lapel of my Armani suit. Drunk? No, old man. I've never been more sober than I am now. Michael sneered, with a twisted smile on that handsome face that I always felt proud of because it was identical to his mother's. He snatched the microphone from the presenter, who was petrified nearby. The screech of audio feedback rang out sharp, making the whole room wince. "Ladies and gentlemen," Michael shouted, slurring his words but full of resentment, "what are you celebrating? Congratulating a 60-year-old man who keeps clinging to the president's chair and refuses to let go for the new generation?" My blood ran cold. Emily was by his side, head down, clutching her clutch bag, but she did nothing to stop her husband. "Michael, stop it," I growled, trying to maintain the little dignity I had left. "Is it not enough?" He pointed his finger directly at my face, the finger that wore the gold ring I gave him on his graduation day. "Look at yourself, Daniel. You are old. Your mentality is that of a bricklayer, mixing cement. It is obsolete. This world needs technology. It needs innovation, not your bricks full of sweat. You built this empire, yes, but you are holding it back. And most importantly, you are holding me back." The room gasped with astonishment. Partners of many years looked at me with pity. Competitors covered their mouths to hide their laughter. I stood there stunned, looking at the son I carried in my arms when he was a baby, the son for whom I swore before my wife's grave that I would protect and care for all my life. He was not only insulting me, he was denying my entire life. Bricklayer mentality. That phrase was like a knife, straight to my pride. Yes, I started as a bricklayer. I laid every single one of the first bricks with these bare and bleeding hands, so that he could sit in air-conditioned cars and study at the most prestigious universities in London. Give me the company, Michael continued, changing his tone from anger to contempt. Either you retire and let me update this pile of ruins, or stay hugging it until you die of old age. But do not expect me to stay here applauding. Michael threw the microphone on the floor. A dry and thunderous sound resonated, like a slap in my face in front of hundreds of people. He turned around and walked away, dragging Emily. I was left alone on the stage, with the spotlight hitting me directly in the face, blinding and cruel. I did not feel anger. In that moment, I only felt an infinite emptiness. All my life I built skyscrapers, but tonight, the foundations of my own house, my family, had just collapsed. Before continuing, subscribe to the channel and tell us where you are listening from in the comments below. The next morning, the air in my office on the 45th floor of the Reynolds Tower was heavy as lead. The sudden Chicago rain hit the tempered glass, creating a monotonous sound. I was sitting behind my solid oak desk, eyes sunken after a sleepless night. In front of me were Michael and Emily. The drunkenness from last night had dissipated, but the arrogance on my son's face had not. Michael sat with his legs crossed, with the attitude of someone who believes he has the upper hand. Emily was by his side, back straight, face cold, and her hand resting gently on her belly, a gesture of which I vaguely guessed the meaning, or at least the meaning they wanted me to understand. "Have you thought about what I told you last night, Dad?" Michael opened his mouth without a shred of remorse for the shameful spectacle he caused. "Do you call that insolent drunk performance a proposal?" I asked with a hoarse voice. "It is the truth, Dad. Maybe the alcohol made me speak louder than normal, but it is what I think," Michael shrugged. "Emily and I have discussed it well. We cannot live forever under your shadow. I am 28 years old. I need real power, not that empty title of project director you gave me out of charity." I looked at Emily. "And you, Emily? Do you also think I am an obsolete old bricklayer?" Emily looked up, looking me straight in the eyes. Her gaze was sharp, without the shyness of a new daughter-in-law, father-in-law. "I respect your past, but Michael is right. This era needs young people, and we need security for the future of the grandson who is on the way." My heart skipped a beat. "Grandson, are you pregnant?" I asked, softening my voice a little. Emily did not answer. She just put her hand on her belly and smiled mysteriously. Michael seized the opportunity immediately. "That is right. You are going to be a grandfather. But I do not want my son to grow up seeing his father asking Grandpa for every penny to spend. I want my son to be proud because his father is the president." Michael leaned forward, putting a thin folder on the table. "These are the management transfer papers. I want 51% of the voting shares, immediately, and you will become honorary president. Just sign here, and we will be a happy family, waiting for the new member. You will be able to hold your grandson. You will be able to rest." I took the folder. The cold legal letters danced before my eyes. Total transfer of power, stripping me of control over the spiritual child I bled to raise. "And if I do not sign?" I asked, without taking my eyes off the paper. Michael let out a laugh, a short, cutting laugh. "If you do not sign, then Emily and I are leaving. We will go to the West Coast. You will never see my face again, and do not expect to see your grandsons either. You will die of old age in this ivory tower, alone, with your pile of money." I looked up, looking deeply into my son's eyes. I looked for a little doubt, a little residual affection. But there was nothing, only greed and cruelty. Are you blackmailing me with my own blood, Michael? It is not blackmail, it is a negotiation, Michael replied dryly. Then he said the phrase that put an end to all my hopes, the phrase that would haunt me for years to come. Be realistic, Dad. Do you think I am by your side because you are a wonderful father? You are always busy. It is always work. For me, in reality, you are just an ATM with legs. And if the ATM no longer spits out money, then it has no value. The space seemed to crack. I clearly heard the sound of my heart breaking in my chest. It was not the sound of broken glass, but of old bricks, crumbling until they became dust. ATM, I repeated with an expressionless voice. Sign, Dad? Michael insisted, pushing the Mont Blanc pen toward me. I looked at the pen, then I looked at Michael, then at Emily. In that moment, I realized I had been wrong. I was wrong for 28 years. I thought I was building a castle for a prince, but it turns out I built a golden cage to feed a monster. I slowly closed the folder. I pushed it toward Michael. I am not going to sign. Michael's face changed color. What? Do you dare to? Are you not afraid of losing your grandson? I am afraid, I said, standing up and turning my back to look out the window toward the gray city. But I am more afraid of leaving this legacy in the hands of someone who does not know the value of sweat. Fine. Very fine. Michael jumped up, snatching the folder. Let's go, Emily. Let's see how long the money lasts for this old man. We are leaving. The sound of the door closing was a thunderclap, so strong that it made the oil painting hanging on the wall tremble. When the door closed, silence fell like a black tide, drowning me. I was no longer the powerful President Reynolds. I collapsed into the leather armchair. My legs were shaking and would not hold me. I held up my 2 hands in front of my face. These hands were now well cared for, with trim nails, skin softer thanks to expensive creams. But under that skin I could still feel the old calluses. I remembered 30 years ago, the day Linda, my wife, died of a serious illness when Michael was only 3 years old. That day we were so poor we did not have money for a decent coffin. I stood in the rain hugging my little son who was crying inconsolably from hunger, and I swore a terrible oath to heaven and earth. My son will never suffer. He will live like a king. His hands will never have to touch cement and bricks like his father. I fulfilled that oath. I worked from sunrise to sunset, 18 hours a day. I slept on construction sites. I ate dry bread. I drank tap water. I fought for every contract. I swallowed the humiliation before arrogant investors. Every time I got tired, I looked at the photo of Michael smiling, and I would grab the trowel again and keep building. I gave him everything: luxury cars, international schools, designer clothes, 5-star trips. I cleared every obstacle in his path. If he stumbled, I put my body as a cushion. If he caused trouble, I used money to shut people's mouths. And what was the result? I created a 28-year-old man with the mentality of a child, a guy who thinks money sprouts from his daddy's pockets and not from sweat and blood, a guy who dares to call his father an ATM. My tears flowed. They were not noisy tears, but hot and salty tears, flowing inward, bitter in my throat. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and took out an object carefully wrapped in a red velvet cloth. It was not gold, nor precious stones. It was my first bricklayer's trowel, with the worn wooden handle and the rusty steel blade. I squeezed the trowel, feeling the cold of the metal transmit to the palm of my hand. It reminded me of who I was. I am not an ATM. I am Daniel Reynolds. I am the man who turned dust into gold. And painfully I realized that to save my son, I had to do the cruelest thing a father can do. I had to destroy the fantasy world I had built for him myself. I had to let him fall. Fall and hit hard. Fall to the bottom of the black mud, the place from where I crawled up. Linda, forgive me, I whispered to the void, gently kissing the old tool. I loved our son the wrong way. Now I have to fix that mistake, even though this might make me lose him forever. The next morning I called Robert, my personal lawyer, and also my closest friend, to the office at 7 in the morning. Robert entered, saw my haggard face and the half-empty bottle of whiskey on the table, despite it being early. "Daniel, are you okay?" "About the other night?" "I'm fine, Robert," I interrupted him. My voice had regained a cold calm, although the storm continued inside. "I need you to draft some legal documents, immediately." Robert sat down and took out his notepad. "Do you want to change the will, or transfer the shares to Michael as he demanded?" I smiled slightly and shook my head. "No, I want you to execute the asset purging process. Write this down well, Robert." I took a deep breath. Every word that came out was like a knife cutting my own flesh. "First, freeze all additional credit cards in the name of Michael Reynolds and Emily Vega. All of them, including the black card with no limit." Robert stopped his pen, looked up, and stared at me in amazement. "All of them. But Daniel, they spend completely with those cards. If you cut them off, what will they live on? That is their problem." "Second," I continued, not letting Robert protest, "revoke the right to use the penthouse in the Gold Coast district. That apartment is in the company's name. Send an eviction notice. Give them 48 hours to leave. Daniel, that is your son's house. Do you plan to throw them out on the street? He said he wanted to be independent. I am helping him. Third, repossess Emily's BMW X7 and the Porsche. They are also company assets. Notify the security department to activate the GPS and recover the cars this very afternoon, and something else." I got up and walked to the window. "Cancel the life insurance. Cancel the trust funds in Michael's name. And most importantly, issue a termination notice for Michael from his position as project director. Reason: violation of company discipline, disturbing public order, and damage to the group's reputation." Robert dropped his pen, his face pale. "You went crazy, Daniel. You are declaring war on your own son. He will hate you to death. And the grandson? Emily is pregnant. If that pregnancy is real," I turned around, with a gaze sharp as a razor, "then all the more reason I must do it. I do not want my grandson to be raised by a useless father who thinks money is leaves that fall from the garden trees. If Michael thinks I am just a wallet, then let him taste the flavor of life when that wallet closes." "But will you be able to bear it?" Robert asked quietly. "I know you love him more than your own life." I looked at my hands. Then I closed them into fists. "Precisely because I love him more than my life. I have to kill the young master Michael so that the man Michael has the chance to be born. Do it, Robert. Do not let a single penny escape." Robert looked at me for a long time. Then he sighed and nodded. The sound of typing began to resonate. Every keystroke was like a nail closing the coffin of my father-son relationship, but I knew there was no turning back. That noon, Michael and Emily were having lunch at one of the most expensive 3 Michelin star restaurants in Chicago. Michael, still unaware that the storm was approaching, was enthusiastically ordering a bottle of Petrus, 1989 wine valued at $5,000. "You see, love?" Michael laughed loudly, taking Emily's hand. "The old man will have to give in. My dad cannot stand loneliness. In a few days he will call begging us to come back, and at that moment I will make him sign the transfer papers." Emily smiled, but her smile did not reach her eyes. "Are you sure, Michael? Last night he looked very determined." "Bah, I know my dad. He is only good for threatening. All his life he has lived for me. Come on, a toast to our future, to freedom." Michael raised the dark red wine glass. "Ding! Ding!" Michael's phone notified a message. At the same time, Emily's phone also vibrated. Michael calmly unlocked his cell phone. Surely it is the message of the allowance transfer. Let's see if this month it occurred to him to increase it. The smile on Michael's lips faded. The wine glass in his hand shook violently and fell on the table, shattering. The red wine spread across the white tablecloth as if it were blood. "What? What the hell is this?" Michael stammered. On the phone screen appeared the bank notification. The credit card ending in 8899 has been blocked at the request of the primary holder. Transaction declined. Mine too, Emily said with a panic-stricken voice. All the cards are blocked. The joint account is also frozen. Impossible. He would not dare. Michael roared, attracting the attention of neighboring tables. He quickly called me. I was sitting in the office, watching the phone ring. Name on screen. Son. I let it ring again and again. I did not answer. My silence at this moment was the most forceful answer. Michael called for the 5th time, and I hung up. He frantically called Robert. Uncle Robert. What is happening? Why aren't my cards working? What game is my dad playing? Robert's voice over the speakerphone sounded professional and distant. Hello, Michael. I have been authorized to inform you that as of 12 noon today, all financial support from Mr. Daniel Reynolds to you has ceased completely. You have also been fired from the company. Additionally, you have 48 hours to vacate the apartment on the Gold Coast. Good luck. Good luck, my ass. Put my dad on right now. He cannot do this to me. Michael shouted at the phone with his face red with anger. Mr. Reynolds is busy, Michael, and he asked me to tell you. If you are an eagle that wants to fly, do not cling to the nest. Jump. Beep, beep, beep. Michael threw the latest model iPhone on the restaurant floor, shattering the screen. He was panting, looking around. The waiter approached with a face of pity but firm. Mr. Reynolds, your card was declined. Do you have another payment method? The total bill is $6,200. Michael looked in his wallet. Empty. He never carried cash. He looked at Emily. She shook her head, pale. Mr. Michael? The waiter repeated, his voice losing some respect. For the first time in his life, Michael felt the humiliation of having no money. He, the Prince of Chicago, was now at risk of being treated like a scammer. Put it on my tab. Put it on my dad's account, Michael shouted. I am sorry, sir. Mr. Daniels' office just called to clarify that they will not pay any bill generated by you from this moment on. If you do not pay, we will have to call the police. Michael froze. He looked at Emily, then at the surrounding guests who were whispering and pointing. The arrogance from before had vanished, replaced by naked fear. Finally, Emily had to take off her Cartier watch and diamond engagement ring to give them to the restaurant manager as collateral. They left the restaurant amidst shame, not as winners, but like beaten dogs. Upon reaching the door, the valet parking attendant approached, confused. Mr. Michael, your car? People from the Reynolds Group just came and took it away. They said the vehicle has been repossessed. Michael stood rooted to the sidewalk under the scorching sun. No money, no car, no house, no job. He looked up at the sky. Then he looked toward the Reynolds Tower, rising in the distance, where I was observing the city. Very well, old man. Michael gritted his teeth, eyes bloodshot with hate. Do you want war? I will give you war. Do you think I am going to starve? I will show you that. Without your money, I live well. And at that moment, do not expect to see my face again. Michael grabbed Emily by the hand and dragged her toward the subway station, a place where in his entire life he had never set foot. I was standing at my office window, watching with binoculars, seeing 2 small dots blending into the crowd. I lowered the binoculars and took a sip of bitter wine. Start, son, I whispered. Welcome to the real world. Let's see how far you swim before you sink. The war was just beginning, and I knew that the one who would bleed the most in this battle would not be him, but my old heart. If you have never fallen from a 45th floor to the ground, you will not understand how brutal the impact is. Michael did not die physically, but his proud soul was crushed the moment he set foot in the subway station, suffocating and smelling of sweat and old metal. I watched the security camera footage at the downtown station afterwards. The image of my only son, who had never worn a shirt that was not Egyptian cotton, was now standing squeezed among the crowd of workers leaving their shifts, clumsy in front of the ticket vending machine, face red with shame and anger, while Emily stuck to the wall, hugging her designer bag tightly, the last asset left unconfiscated. They did not go home, because there was no home to go to anymore. They had to look for a cheap motel in a bad neighborhood, a working-class area where Michael used to only pass through in his car, frowning with contempt. That night, I sat in my study with all the lights off, only with the light of the fireplace. I imagined my son struggling. Every minute that passed was like a knife cutting my insides. "Drink, Daniel!" I poured myself the third glass of strong liquor. "You are teaching him to swim. To swim, you have to swallow water." But reality was crueler than I imagined. The private investigator's report sent at 2 in the morning showed that Michael had gotten into a fight with the motel owner as soon as he arrived. He complained about the smelly mattress, the rusty faucet, and shouted, "Do you know who I am? I am Michael Reynolds. My dad is going to buy this dump of a neighborhood and is going to kick you out." The motel owner, a fat man with tattooed arms, simply spat at Michael's feet and said, "I don't give a damn who your daddy is, but if you don't give me $400 deposit in advance, I'm kicking you out to the street right now." Michael went mute. He looked at Emily, his wife, the woman who carried in her womb the royal blood, with which he tried to negotiate with me. She silently took off her pearl earrings, an anniversary gift, and put them in the owner's calloused hand. "Is it enough?" Emily asked, with a trembling voice but without crying. "It's fine, princess," mocked the owner, throwing them a bunch of rusty keys. "Room 304, third floor, no elevator, and make no noise." I read the report, looking at the photo taken secretly of Michael, climbing the dark stairs, carrying the suitcases reluctantly. For the first time in his life, he had to carry his own luggage. For the first time, no one opened the door for him. This fall from the horse not only hurt his spoiled backside, but it was stripping the truth about who he is. Without Daniel Reynolds' money, Michael is just a useless, loudmouthed, and weak guy. The motel room was barely 270 square feet, the walls stained with mold, the ceiling with a long crack like an ugly scar, and the window looked directly at the brick wall of the building opposite. There was no sun, only the smell of stale food and the shouts of neighbors arguing. Michael threw the Louis Vuitton suitcase on the dirty floor. He refused to unpack. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, muttering like a madman. "It is only temporary. Just a few days. The old man is testing me. He will not let his grandson live in this pigsty." "Michael, we need to clean," said Emily with a tired voice. She began to pick up the beer bottles and trash the previous tenant had left. "Don't touch that," shouted Michael. "Do not act like we belong to this place. I'm going to call Mark. He owes me $50,000 from the bar investment last year. He will lend us a decent apartment." Michael took out his phone. Mark was his best friend, the one who always called him "my soul brother," the one who swore eternal loyalty at those crazy parties in Ibiza that I paid for completely. "Hello, Mark. It's me, Michael." I could not hear what they were saying on the other side, but I saw how Michael's face changed from hope to shock, and then turned purple with anger. "What do you say? You have no cash? Are you kidding me? I saved you from bankruptcy. Hello?" Michael threw the phone on the mattress. He kept calling David, Louis, Jason, a whole long list of high society friends. The result? Voicemail, in a meeting, traveling, or more cruelly, "I heard your dad cut you off. Sorry, Michael. I do not want to look bad with your old man. My dad is still a subcontractor for his company." The naked truth was exposed. Those friendships Michael prided himself on, those relationships he believed were due to his personal charisma, were all bought with my money. When the tap was closed, the leeches released automatically to look for a new host. "Damned! Traitors!" Michael howled, kicking the rotten wooden wardrobe hard. The wardrobe door fell off, making a pitiful noise. Emily remained silent. She did not console her husband. She found a bucket and an old rag. She started mopping the floor. At that moment, through the lens of the secret camera I had ordered installed. Yes, I am that ruthless. I needed to know every move to guarantee their safety. Or maybe To satisfy my sick control, I saw a painful contrast. Michael standing in the middle of the room, cursing the whole world, helpless and noisy. Emily on her knees on the dirty floor, putting her thin hands into the black water bucket, silent and active. For the first time I looked at my daughter-in-law with different eyes, not with the contempt reserved for a gold digger, but with curiosity. This girl, what is she doing? Why isn't she crying along with her useless husband? The 5th day passed. I could not stand seeing them only through the computer screen anymore. The longing for my son, the pain and constant worry, drove me to do something. I did not go in the Maybach with a chauffeur. I went down to the garage, removed the dusty tarp from the Ford truck, old 1990 model, the first vehicle I bought with the profits from my first job. It still smelled of engine oil and cement, the smell of the past. I drove to the bad neighborhood. I parked on the corner opposite the motel, pulling down my cap to cover my face. It was drizzling. The autumn cold seeped to the bones, making my joints worn by hard work ache. The motel door opened. Michael came out. My heart shrank. He was wearing an old sweatshirt, wrinkled sweatpants, beard grown on a haggard face. He seemed to have aged 10 years in just 1 week. Where was he going? To look for a job? To buy food for his pregnant wife? I held my breath watching. Michael walked past the grocery store that sold bread and milk. He turned directly toward the cheap liquor store on the corner. 5 minutes later, he came out with 2 bottles of cheap liquor hidden in his jacket. He walked looking everywhere like a thief. Then he opened the cap and took a long swig in the middle of the street. My tears flowed, hot and salty. I remembered my image at 25. When my wife was in the hospital, I stopped eating lunch for 3 months to save money for her medicines. I drank water from public fountains to fill my empty stomach. And my son, while his wife was pregnant, or so he believed, and hungry in that room, he used the last coins to buy oblivion. I squeezed the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I wanted to open the door, run out, slap him, and drag him home. I wanted to scream, "Why are you such a coward? Where's the Reynolds blood?" But I did nothing. I stayed there, watching my son stumble back under the rain, a pathetic failure. If I intervene now, I will kill him, I told myself, with a trembling voice. Saving him now is consenting to his cowardice. He has to hit rock bottom. It has to hurt him so much that it cannot hurt any more for him to wake up. I started the engine, turned around and returned to my luxurious but cold mansion. That night I dreamed I was building a brick wall, but instead of using mortar, I used tears to join them. And the wall kept growing, separating me from Michael forever. 2nd week, the cash had run out completely. In the suffocating room, the tension was like a rope about to break. The refrigerator was empty. Only a bottle of water and half a moldy bread remained. Michael was lying on the bed. The drunkenness had gone, giving way to a ravenous hunger and irritability. "Where's the food? Why didn't you cook anything?" Michael asked, slurring his words. Emily was sitting by the window, mending Michael's torn shirt. She looked up, eyes sunken but dry. "We ran out of rice. We ran out of money. You drank the money for the whole week's food and alcohol, Michael. Do not come giving me lessons." Michael jumped up with a red face. "Do you think I want to be like this? It is my dad's fault. It is the fault of that damned old man who wants to kill us." Michael paced back and forth in the room like a wounded animal. Suddenly his gaze stopped on a small box on the improvised dresser. It was Emily's keepsake box. Inside, there was a gold necklace with a sapphire, the only memory her grandmother left her before dying. Emily valued it more than her own life. Michael lunged, grabbing the box. "Give it to me. This can be sold for good money. Enough to live another month?" "No!" shouted Emily, throwing herself to recover it. "You cannot touch it. It is my grandmother's. Your grandmother is dead, and we are starving," Michael roared, using his strength as a man to push his wife to the floor. He ripped the necklace from her hand. "Michael, you are a wretch. Do you plan to sell your wife's memory to buy alcohol?" Emily shouted through tears. The pain was not for losing the object, but for the total despair about the man she chose as a husband. Smack! The sound of the slap resonated dryly in the narrow room. Emily fell against the corner of the wall, clutching her cheek. She looked at Michael, eyes wide with shock. It was not because of the pain, but because of the collapse of an idol. The elegant, gentlemanly husband, who always said pretty words, had disappeared. In front of her, only a cowardly, violent guy remained, willing to hit his woman to satisfy his own addiction. Michael stood there, breathing with difficulty, clutching the necklace. He seemed also scared by his own action, but his ego was too big to apologize. "Do not force me," he hissed. Then he turned around and left, slamming the door. Emily stayed there, in the gloom of the sunset. She was no longer crying. The tears had dried. She brought her hand to her belly. The pregnancy was fake, a trick to pressure her father-in-law. But the hunger was real. The pain was real. And this loneliness was real. She realized a cruel truth. No one is coming to save her. Michael will not save her, her father-in-law much less. She got up, went to the bathroom, and splashed cold water on her face. In the mirror, a strange woman returned her gaze. Her eyes no longer had that innocence, nor the pampering, nor the petty calculations. That look contained a cold fire, the fire of survival. 6 a.m, the next day. While Michael was still snoring with strong alcohol breath, Emily had already left the motel. She was not wearing her designer dresses. She was wearing old jeans bought at the flea market and a faded t-shirt, hair tied back behind her neck. She took off her wedding ring, the only valuable thing she had left, but she did not sell it. She put it in her chest pocket as a reminder of her mistake. She went to the wholesale market. The place was noisy, chaotic, full of the smell of fish, rotten vegetables, and the sweat of poor workers. Emily took a deep breath. The smell was terrible, but it was the smell of life, the smell of clean money. She went from stall to stall, small restaurant to small restaurant on the roadside. "I need work. Anything." "What do you know how to do? With those princess hands?" The owner of a food stall looked at her with distrust. "I know how to wash dishes. I know how to mop. I know how to wait tables." "I can do everything," replied Emily with a firm voice. "I do not need a contract. Pay me in cash at the end of the day, and that's it." The owner looked at her a moment, and then pointed with her chin toward the mountain of dirty dishes in the back of the kitchen. $20 a day. Includes a meal. If you want, come in. If not, get out. I'll take it. And so Emily Vega, who once dreamed of being the president's wife, began her new life next to a sink full of grease and food scraps. The detergent ate the skin off her hands. Her back ached, as if it were going to split in two after 10 hours standing. Those thin fingers that before only knew how to hold wine glasses were now swollen, cracked, and bleeding from scrubbing burnt pots. But she did not complain, not a word. Every time she wanted to give up, she remembered Michael's slap. She remembered Daniel's look of contempt. "Do they think I am a parasite? I'm going to show them." 2 weeks later, in my office, I was looking at the last file the detective sent. They were not photos of Michael drunk. I was already sick of that scene. They were photos of Emily. The photo showed her squatting at the back door of a restaurant, hurriedly eating a piece of dry bread, with red and rough hands on her knees, clothes stained with grease, messy hair, but her eyes? I used a magnifying glass to examine those eyes in the photo. It was not the look of a loser. It was the look of a wounded she-wolf, still showing her fangs. The look of resilience. The look of myself. I felt a chill. I remembered my hands years ago. The calluses from holding the trowel, from mixing cement. The bleeding cracks every time it was cold. Emily's hands in the photo now were identical to my hands back then, calloused hands. That is the identity signal of those from the same tribe, the tribe of those who rose from the mud, the tribe of those who know the value of work. Michael does not have those hands. He has soft pianist hands, but an empty soul. and Emily, my gold-digger daughter-in-law, is growing the hands of a builder. I put the photo on the table, lit a cigar, and blew smoke into the void. "How interesting," I murmured. "I have been looking for my heir in the wrong place." I picked up the phone and called my secretary. "Patricia, prepare the car. This afternoon I want to go eat, not to a 5-star restaurant, to that soup kitchen at the wholesale market. But, sir, there. Do it. I want to go see a diamond in the rough being polished. On my chessboard a queen has just appeared that I never expected, and I am starting to feel that maybe my legacy will not die with that useless son. Chicago in late November soaked to the bones, but the cold outside did not compare to the cold in my heart when I decided to execute the final test. A cruel test, I know, but necessary to separate the garbage from the pure gold. The plan was meticulously organized by Robert. An internal press release was sent. President Daniel Reynolds has been hospitalized in critical condition due to cardiac arrest. I lay in a VIP room at St. Jude's private hospital, connected to wires and machines that went beep, beep. Although my heart was beating rhythmically and strongly, the room reeked of antiseptic, the smell of death and hopelessness. I lay there, pretending to be in a coma with my eyes closed, waiting. 2 hours after the news leaked, the door to the room burst open. There were no hurried footsteps of concern. There were no stifled sobs. Only the sound of expensive leather shoes hitting clack-clack against the cold tile floor. It was Michael. He was with Robert. I squinted, looking through my eyelashes, and I saw my son in an old coat, but his eyes shone in a strange way. It was not the shine of hope that his father would survive, but the shine of greed. "How is the situation, Uncle Robert?" Michael asked, unable to hide his impatience. "Is he going to leave already?" Robert, with a face of professional coldness, replied, "The doctor says the chances of him waking up are very low. A massive heart attack. So, what about the will?" Michael lowered his voice, glancing toward the bed where I lay motionless. "Did he change the will? Or is it still the old one?" "The will has not been revealed, Michael. But according to the law, you remain the sole heir if there is no document to replace it." I heard Michael's sigh of relief. He approached the bed. I could feel his breath reeking of cheap liquor hitting my face. He did not take my hand. He did not stroke my hair. He just stood there, staring at the heart monitor. "Hurry up, old man." She stood there, staring at me. And then I saw her shoulders shaking. She was crying. It was not a cry of fake screams. She cried in silence. The tears rolled down her haggard cheeks. She put the container on the small table by the entrance. "The doctor said you cannot eat," she whispered with a hoarse voice. "But this is chicken broth. I cooked it like my mom did when I got sick. If you wake up, please, eat a little." She stayed a moment longer, clasping her hands as if praying for something. And then she turned around in silence and left, quick as a stray cat, afraid of being hit. When the door closed, I opened my eyes and stared at the white ceiling. I asked Robert to bring me the container. It was still hot. The aroma of rice and onions invaded my nose, drowning out the antiseptic smell. I opened the lid, took a spoonful, and brought it to my mouth. The taste was bland. Maybe she did not have money to buy many seasonings, but it was the most delicious thing I had eaten in years. While my biological son wished for my death to keep the fortune, the daughter-in-law, the gold digger, used her last coins to cook me a broth. A tear of mine fell into the bowl, mixing with the broth. "Robert," I said with a hardened voice, "prepare the car. I am discharging myself. We have work to do." If Michael's indifference at the hospital was a knife in my heart, what I discovered later was the sledgehammer that completely crushed the image of father in me. I returned to the office, no longer pretending to be sick. I sat in front of the computer screen where the cybersecurity team tracked Michael's activities in the last 48 hours. Upon learning that I was about to die, Michael did not just sit and wait. Misery and greed turned him from useless into a criminal. "Mr. President," said the head of security with a timid voice, not daring to look me in the eyes, this is what young Michael did this morning. On the screen appeared the security camera video of a clandestine pawn shop on the outskirts of Chicago, a place that specializes in moving stolen goods and loan sharking. Michael entered, putting a folder on the table. He spoke with the owner, a known gangster known as One Eye. "These are the property titles for warehouse number 4 of the Reynolds Company," said Michael in the video, hands shaking but trying to sound tough. "My dad is dying. I am the sole heir. I need $50,000 in cash right now. I am pawning this warehouse. These papers do not have the transfer signature." One Eye smiled mockingly, showing his yellow teeth. "I signed for my old man," shouted Michael, taking out a pen. "He is in a coma. Anyway, this is going to be mine. Give me the money. Next week I pay you double." And before my eyes, my own son forged my signature. The signature I used to sign thousands of contracts that built this city was now used by him to ask for gambling money. He did not borrow to buy me medicines. He did not borrow to buy food for Emily. The report of his personal account, which I continued to monitor in secret, showed it. Immediately after receiving the $50,000, he did not go to the motel. He went straight to a clandestine casino in the basement of a bar. In a matter of 6 hours, he burned the $50,000 on roulette and poker. I looked at my son on the screen, bloodshot eyes, messy hair, hitting the table and screaming when he lost the last hand. He looked more like a hungry demon than a human being. "He committed a crime," said Robert, standing next to me in a low voice. "Forgery of signature, illegal mortgage of company assets. Daniel, if we call the police, he will spend at least 5 years in jail." I closed my eyes. The image of little 5-year-old Michael running innocently into my arms when I came home from work appeared, and then it burst like a soap bubble, replaced by the image of the despicable man shouting in the casino. "We will not call the police," I said, opening my eyes. My gaze was now dry as the desert. Jail is too soft for him. He needs another sentence, a sentence that teaches him what hell on earth is. "One Eye is not someone you play with," warned Robert. "If Michael does not pay, they will kill him. He will not die." I got up, adjusting my tie. "But he will wish he had died, and that is the moment when I will appear, not to save him, but to buy my last name back." I turned to look at the family photo on my desk. I took it, looked at it one last time, and put it face down on the table. "Michael Reynolds died tonight, Robert. The one wandering out there is just a debtor wearing my son's face, 3 days after the fake heart attack. It was pouring in Chicago, washing away the city's dirt, but not the sadness in people's hearts. 11 at night, in the alley behind the restaurant at the wholesale market. Emily had just finished a 14-hour shift. She dragged her tired feet toward the back door to throw out a huge garbage bag. The smell of food scraps stuck to her hair and clothes. Her hands were swollen, red, and blistered from being in soapy water so long. She threw the trash into the dumpster, then leaned against the cold brick wall, lifting her face to the sky so the rain would hit her face, trying to scare away sleep and exhaustion. A black umbrella appeared, covering the rain falling on her. Emily startled and opened her eyes. In front of her was a man in a long trench coat, shiny leather shoes without a speck of dust. The smell of sandalwood perfume overpowered the smell of garbage. It was me. Emily froze. She stepped back by instinct, eyes wide open. You are alive?" she stammered. The news said you were about to die," I replied with a calm voice. "But bad weeds never die. Didn't you know?" Emily kept silent. She looked at me. Then she looked at her own miserable appearance. She tried to hide her red and swollen hands behind her back, a gesture of the little self-love she had left. "Did you come to mock me?" asked Emily, hardening her voice, eyes shining defensively. "Do you want to see how miserable your daughter-in-law is without your money?" I did not answer immediately. I looked at her torn canvas shoes. I looked at the dirty apron she was wearing. "Give me your hands," I ordered. "What?" I said, "Give me your hands." Emily hesitated a moment. Then she slowly extended her hands in front of her. Under the yellowish light of the street lamp, those hands looked devastated. Bleeding cracks, rough calluses. They were no longer the hands of a lady who only knew how to hold glasses. I took off my leather gloves. I extended my bare hand, putting it next to hers. "Look," I said. Emily looked. My hand was also full of old scars, calluses that had petrified over the years. Although they were now cared for, the bone structure and skin still betrayed the past of forced labor. "Do they look alike?" I asked. Emily looked up at me. Surprise replaced fear. "Does it hurt?" I asked, pointing to the crack on her index finger. "It hurts," she replied with a trembling voice. "It hurts to the bone every time I touch cold water." "Good," I nodded. "That pain is real. My money can be fake, fame can be fake, but this pain is real. It reminds you that you are alive and that you are earning money with your own effort." I took a small jar of ointment from my pocket and put it in the palm of her hand. "Put this on at night. It helps the wounds heal faster." I used it when I mixed cement. Emily took the ointment, staring at me as if I were an alien. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you do this? You hate me. You threw us out on the street." "I do not hate you, Emily," I said, turning to walk toward the car that was waiting for me. "I just hated the mask you were wearing. But now I am starting to like your true face." "Wait," shouted Emily. "Michael, he is—" "I know what he is doing," I interrupted her without turning back. "And you know it too. The question is, are you going to keep sinking with that ship, or do you want to swim alone to the shore?" I got into the car, leaving Emily alone in the rain, clutching the jar of ointment, while in her head a choice began to form that she had never dared to think before. The next day I invited Emily to lunch, not to a fancy restaurant, but to a cheap diner near where she worked. She arrived, having changed into cleaner clothes, but which still emanated poverty. She sat across from me, looking suspicious. "Eat!" I pushed the mixed fried rice plate toward her. Before, when I started, this was the most luxurious dish for me. Emily took the spoon and ate with gusto. She was hungry, the real hunger of the manual worker, not that kind of diet to maintain the figure of the upper class. "What do you want from me?" asked Emily after eating half the plate. "You are not kind out of nowhere. Do you want me to leave Michael? Do you love him?" I returned the question, looking her straight in the eyes. Emily stopped. She lowered the spoon. She hesitated. "I thought so. Michael was sweet, dashing, and rich. He gave me a sense of security." "Security?" I smiled ironically. "And now?" "Now I am afraid," admitted Emily, lowering her voice. "Every night he comes home drunk, checks my purse to steal money to go gambling. He hits me, not just once. I look into my husband's eyes, and I do not see the man I married. I see a spoiled child who is dying. You are right. He is a spoiled child, and I was the one who spoiled him," I said with bitterness. "I used money to pave his road, making him believe that life is flat. And when he found the first pothole, he broke a leg." Emily looked at me. Her gaze softened. For the first time, we were not the rich father-in-law and the gold-digger daughter-in-law. We were two people sharing disappointment about the same man. I have a secret to tell you. Emily took a deep breath, as if she were gathering all her courage. "The pregnancy is fake." I was not surprised. I just nodded slightly. "I know, or at least I guessed. No pregnant woman works 14 hours a day without suffering a miscarriage." I lied. Emily's tears flowed. "I thought using the baby could pressure him to give in. I am sorry. I am despicable." "You are despicable because you lied to take advantage," I said seriously. "But you are worthy of respect because you dared to confess it when you have nothing in your hands. And more importantly, you did not use that fake pregnancy to keep living off me when I kicked you out. You chose to go wash dishes." I took out a handkerchief and gave it to her. "Dry your tears. Tears do not pay the rent. Only sweat does that." Emily wiped her face, looking up at me with a new determination. "You are right. I come from a poor background, Mr. Reynolds. My dad was an alcoholic. My mom left. I swore I would never be poor again. I married Michael for money, I admit it. But these weeks, washing every plate, being insulted by the owner, I feel like I'm living with more dignity than when I was sitting on his money. That is self-love, girl, I smiled, a rare and genuine smile. It is worth more than any Hermes bag. I am going to leave him, said Emily with a firm voice, not because you ask me to, but because I cannot keep pulling the plow to pay the debts of someone who does not value my effort. This morning he stole the tips I was hiding in my shoe. That was the last straw. Wise decision, I nodded. And since you have been honest with me, I will also give you an opportunity. But it is not charity money. It is an opportunity for you to prove you are worth it. What opportunity? Wait to see how tonight's play ends. I got up to pay for the meal. Keep that ointment. You are going to need to use those hands a lot. That night, Michael's nightmare came true. He was hiding in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts, where One-Eye's thugs summoned him to settle accounts. The deadline had expired. The $50,000 principal, plus the usurious interest, had turned into a monstrous figure that he could not get anywhere. He was huddled in a dark corner, shivering from cold and fear. His Armani suit was in tatters, full of mud. His handsome face was purple from previous beatings. The rusty iron door rose with a sharp screech. The headlights of a car hit him straight in the face, making him squint. 3 huge men got out of the car, led by One-Eye with a black patch over his eye and a cruel smile. Well, young Reynolds, One-Eye held a baseball bat, tapping it against the palm of his hand. Where is my money? Or do you plan to pay with your fingers? Please give me more time, Michael begged, kneeling on the ground. My dad died. I am going to receive the inheritance. I will pay you triple. Your dad died? One-Eye laughed out loud. Then I should give you my condolences. But I heard the rumor that your old man has many lives. He made a signal. 2 henchmen lunged, grabbed Michael, and smashed him against a rotten wooden table. One held his left hand, extending his fingers. No, 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 Michael shouted desperately. Dad, help me! Dad! In the moment of life or death, he did not call his wife. He did not call his friends. He called the person he insulted, the one he wished would die. Stop right there! A voice resonated from the darkness behind the headlights. Deep, firm, and full of authority, I stepped out of the shadow. Robert and my team of bodyguards followed me, with the sound of weapons loading. One-Eye squinted, looking at me. He signaled his men to stop. Who is it? Is it not Mr. Daniel Reynolds, who already died? Michael raised his head, looking at me as if he saw God appear. Dad! Dad! You are not dead. Save me. They are going to cut off my hand. I did not look at him. I looked directly at One-Eye. How much does he owe you? Principal plus interest, fines, transfer expenses. $100,000 flat. One-Eye inflated the price. Clearly a robbery. Robert stepped forward, putting a briefcase with cash on the hood of their car. He opened the briefcase. The stacks of new dollar bills were organized. There are the 100,000, said Robert coldly. One-Eye laughed with pleasure. He slapped Michael on the shoulder. How lucky you are, son. Having a rich dad is a blessing. Release him. Michael got up with difficulty, running towards me, trying to hug my legs with his face full of snot and tears. Dad, I knew you would come. I knew you loved me more than anything. Forgive me. I promise. Never again. Back off, I shouted. The scream made Michael stop dead, 6 feet from me. I looked at him. I looked at the cowardly son who just sold my death to borrow money, who forged my signature to scam, and who now tries to use crocodile tears to be a parasite again. I paid for him not to save you, Michael, I said, every word slow and clear like a hammer blow. How? What do you say, Dad? Michael was confused. I paid to buy my last name back. I pointed my finger at his face. From this moment on, you are no longer Michael Reynolds. The Reynolds name does not harbor cowards or scammers. I took a paper out of my jacket pocket. This is the court confirmation. I have filed the request to disinherit you, and this is the file with the evidence that you forged my signature and committed fraud. If I hand this to the police, you are going to rot in jail." Michael's face went bloodless. "Dad, you cannot do that. I can." And I did. I threw the paper at his feet in the black mud puddle. "This debt of $100,000 is the last gift I give you. Consider it payment for having been my son for 28 years. We are even." I turned around, signaling Robert. "Let's go. Dad, do not leave me. Dad, I was wrong. Do not leave me here." Michael howled, trying to run after, but my bodyguards blocked him. He fell into the mud, crying inconsolably like an abandoned child. But this time I did not turn my head. I got into the car, closed the door, leaving his screams outside. The car moved forward, leaving behind the dark warehouse and the son, no, the stranger, in the rearview mirror. In the car, I remained motionless like a stone statue. Robert was sitting next to me, silent, not daring to say anything. I brought my hand to the left side of my chest. My heart was still beating, but I felt as if a huge piece had been torn out. I had just officially killed the son in my heart. "To the meeting point," I told the driver with a hoarse voice. "The true heir is waiting." The drama of family ties was over. Now began the drama of reason and ambition. The Maybach glided smoothly down the deserted highway, leaving behind the dark warehouse and Michael's wails. Inside the car, the air was thick. Robert was in the front seat and occasionally looked at me in the rearview mirror with concern, as if fearing I would have a heart attack at any moment. But I did not have any heart attack. I felt more lucid than ever, a cold lucidity that was scary. "Robert," I broke the silence, "draft the press release. Tomorrow at 8, announce my return to the leadership of Reynolds Construction. And announce also that Michael no longer has any relationship with the group." "Daniel," Robert turned, hesitating, "do you really plan to do that? You just saved him from the mobsters. That shows you still love him. Why don't you—" "Pity and love are two different concepts, Robert." I interrupted him, staring at the darkness of the night through the window. "I saved him because I did not want the Reynolds blood to be stained with an undignified death in a warehouse. But the son I expected died the moment he took the pen to forge my signature." I took out my phone. The screen showed a message from Emily. "I already packed my things. I am waiting." "To the motel," I ordered the driver. "What do you plan to do there at this hour?" "Go pick up the air," I replied dryly. When the luxury car parked in front of the miserable motel, curious neighbors poked their heads out the windows. I got out. My shiny leather shoes stepped on the cracked sidewalk. The scene was ironic. A few weeks ago, my son arrived here as a failure. Today I arrived here like a hunter looking for a jewel among the stones. I did not go up to the room. I leaned on the car door, lighting a cigar. The smoke rose, mixing with the yellowish light of the street lamp. 15 minutes later, a taxi arrived. Michael got out. He was limping, clothes full of mud, face bruised. Seeing me standing there, his eyes lit up with a ray of hope. He thought I had changed my mind. He thought I was coming to take him home, bathe him, feed him rich food, and heal his wounds as I did for 28 years. "Dad!" called Michael with a hoarse voice, trying to throw himself toward me. My 2 bodyguards stepped forward immediately, blocking him like a steel wall. "Dad, what are you doing? It is me. It is Michael," he shouted. "Michael Reynolds already died," I said with a voice of ice, without looking at him, but looking toward the 3rd-floor window, where the light had just turned off. "The one standing in front of me is just a grown man, full of debt and recently disowned by his family. You have hands, you have legs, and most importantly, you no longer owe anyone thanks to the $100,000 I just gave you as charity. Live your own life. You cannot do this. I do not know how to do anything. I am going to starve. Then die." I blew smoke, ruthless to the end. "Or learn to live. That is your choice." Just at that moment, the motel door opened. Emily came out carrying an old travel bag. She was wearing a cheap coat, but her head was held high. Michael looked at Emily, then he looked at me. Total panic appeared in his eyes. Emily, where are you going? Did you call my dad to pick us up? Emily stopped in front of Michael. She looked at her husband covered in mud. Her gaze no longer held reproach, only pity. The atmosphere between the three of us was tense as a violin string. Michael standing there dirty and in panic. Emily opposite, clean and firm. And I, the powerful observer, in the shadows. Michael, began Emily, her voice strangely calm. I did not call him to pick us up. He came for me. What? Michael stepped back as if he had been slapped. What are you saying? Do you plan to leave me? Do you plan to go with this old man? You traitorous woman. He tried to lunge to grab Emily, but my bodyguards pushed him and he fell face down on the ground. Listen well, Michael, said Emily, unflinching at her husband's aggression. I married you because I was ambitious, yes, I admit it. But in the last month, while we lived in hell, I tried to be a good wife. I washed dishes until I bled to buy you bread. And you? You stole money from me. You hit me. And tonight you were cowardly enough to sell your own father's death. Emily took the wedding ring out of her pocket. The simple white gold ring Michael bought hurriedly after his funds were cut. The diamond one she had already pawned long ago. You are right, Michael. It is not your fault. The fault is mine for expecting you to be a man. But you are just a big baby who needs to be breastfed. She let the ring fall to the ground. The sound of metal touching the pavement made a click, small but definitive. Emily, do not go. I beg you. I love you. Michael was crawling on the ground, trying to pick up the ring. Tears ran, creating furrows on his dirty face. How am I going to live without you? I'm very afraid. That is a lesson you have to learn alone. Emily turned her back on him, walking toward me. I opened the car door for her. A gesture of respect I had never given her when she was not. Emily got into the car without turning to look at her husband crying loudly in the mud puddle. Let's go, I ordered. The car moved forward. Through the tinted glass, I saw Michael kneeling in the middle of the street, clutching the cheap ring, screaming his wife's name, his father's name. That image was pathetic, but necessary. In the car, Emily was sitting in silence, hands clenched to stop the trembling. She was not crying. She had already cried enough. You did very well, I said, giving her a bottle of water. I feel like a monster, whispered Emily, abandoning my husband in his most miserable moment. You did not abandon him, I replied. You are just refusing to sink with a ship that is shipwrecking. That is survival instinct, and that is the quality I need. Do you really plan to give me a chance? Emily turned to look at me. Are you not afraid I will steal your company, like Michael warned? I smiled, lighting another cigar. Can you? Try it. But to steal it from Daniel Reynolds, you have to be better than me. And if you are better than me, then this company deserves to be yours. Those are the rules of the game. The next morning, 9 a.m., Board of Directors room on the 45th floor of the Reynolds Tower. The air was stifling. The shareholders, those old sharks in expensive suits, murmured about rumors of my hospitalization and Michael's disappearance. They expected a collapse. They waited to tear apart the market pie. The great door opened. I entered with dignified bearing, without any sign of someone who just had a heart attack. The murmurs ceased. I went straight to the presidential chair. I sat down and scanned the confused faces. Good morning, gentlemen, I said with a powerful voice. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I have not died, and Reynolds Construction hasn't either. Daniel, spoke an older shareholder, we heard that Michael has problems, and you think Michael no longer has anything to do with this group. I interrupted sharply. Today I convened this meeting to announce a new project and new management staff. I pressed the remote control. The projector screen showed the model of a giant social housing urban zone on the outskirts of Chicago, the Hope Project. This was a passionate project I had planned long ago, but did not dare execute because of the low profit margin. We will build houses for low-income people, workers, immigrants, People who are struggling like I did 30 years ago. The profit margin will be low, but the scale will be huge and the cash flow stable. Who is going to lead such a risky project? Someone asked with doubt. Michael? He does not accept doing low-money things. It is not Michael. I smiled mysteriously. Come in. The side door opened. Emily entered. The room gasped with surprise. No one recognized the dirty dishwasher girl from last night. Emily was wearing a perfectly cut navy blue suit, hair tied in a high bun, light but sharp makeup. The only thing was she wore no jewelry, and if someone observed well, they would see her hands still had roughness, hidden skillfully under nude nail polish. I present to you the executive director of the Hope Project, Mrs. Emily Vega, I announced. Your daughter-in-law? One laughed with contempt. Daniel, is this nepotism? What does she know about construction? Emily went up to the podium without fear. She put the folder on the table, looking straight at the one who asked the question. I do not know how to build the skyscrapers where you sit with air conditioning, said Emily with a clear voice. But I know exactly what a worker with an income of $900 a month needs in a house. I know what they eat, how they commute, and how much they are willing to pay for a safe dream. She began to present, not with dry financial numbers, but with the real and painful experiences she had just lived in the motel. She spoke of rusty faucets, moldy walls, and the longing for a dignified home. Her passion and knowledge of naked reality trapped everyone. She did not speak like an apprentice girl. She spoke like a survivor of the battlefield. When Emily finished her presentation, the room was silent for a few seconds. Then scattered applause sounded, and finally the whole room stood up. I looked at Emily, my heart filled with a feeling I had lost long ago. Pride. Not pride for blood, but pride for having found a successor. This is not nepotism, I told the shareholders when the meeting ended. This is meritocracy. She is not sitting in that chair because she carries the Reynolds name. In fact, she divorced and returned the name. She is sitting there because she has the hunger that all of us already forgot. 12 months passed. Chicago was still noisy and bustling, but the lives of the characters on this chessboard had changed completely. The Hope Project was a resounding success. Emily became the queen of social housing, the new face of success and humanism. She worked 16 hours a day, tough on contractors but kind to workers. She continued using the jar of ointment I gave her, and her hands were still rough. She called them her medal of work. She used to come to dinner with me on Sundays. We did not talk about nonsense. We talked about cement, steel, bank interest rates. Father, she called me that, with respect, instead of Dad or Mr. President. I think we should expand to the East Coast. Ambitious, I laughed, drinking a sip of wine. Like me in my times. And Michael? I stopped sending people to watch him. I kept my promise, cutting ties totally. But Chicago is a small city. One afternoon, I went to inspect the progress of a luxury site downtown. While walking with the chief engineer, I saw a group of workers carrying heavy bags of cement from the truck to the freight elevator. A familiar figure struck my sight. It was Michael. He had lost a lot of weight. He was tanned by the sun. He was wearing safety clothes stained with lime and mix, with a yellow helmet. He was carrying a 110-pound bag of cement on his shoulder, sweat running down his dirty face. He did not see me. Or maybe he saw me, but did not dare to look. He was walking stumbling, but he did not fall. He put down the bag of cement, panting. Then he wiped the sweat from his forehead and returned to the truck to load another one. That worker is new, explained the chief engineer, seeing I was staring at him. His last name is Reynolds, I think. Very hard-working, but quiet. Doesn't talk to anyone. They say he used to be a rich kid who went broke. I kept silent. A bitter sensation rose to my throat, but immediately after I felt a strange relief. He was working. He was sweating to earn every dollar. He did not ask for handouts. He did not gamble. He did not scam. He was doing what I did 30 years ago, building life from the bricks. I wanted to approach, pat his shoulder or give him a bottle of water. But I held back. If I approach now, I will take away the little self-love he has barely built. He needs to travel this path alone. I turned around and left, but inside I sent him a greeting. Very well, son. Finally, I see a little bit of man in you. Sitting in the garden of my great mansion, I contemplated the red sunset falling over the city of Chicago. On the table was the photo of Linda, my wife. People say I am a cruel man. They say I am the monster who sacrificed his own son to protect his fortune. Maybe they are right, but they do not understand what legacy is. Legacy is not the money you leave in the bank. Legacy is not the building that bears your name. Legacy is the spirit you transmit to the next generation. I lost a son spoiled in silk, but I traded that pain to save the soul of a man. Michael may be poor now, but he is truly living. He sleeps well every night from the tiredness of work and not from alcohol. And I found a daughter. Emily does not carry my blood, but she carries my fire. She will be the one who keeps this empire standing, not by right of inheritance, but by capacity of conquest. I looked at my old hands. The calluses of yesteryear have been erased, but the pain in the heart is still there, sharp. That is the price of maturity. That is the price of power. I raised my glass, toasting to myself, to Emily, and to the worker carrying cement somewhere out there. Life is very fair, Linda, I whispered to the photo. No one inherits greatness. They have to build it with their own hands. And sometimes, to build a firm castle, we are forced to demolish the rotten bricks, even if they are the bricks we love the most. The sun set completely. The darkness covered the garden. But in the distance, the buildings of Reynolds Construction remained illuminated, bright and proud in the middle of the night sky. If this story has captivated you, like the video, subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box to the left of the screen. Thanks for watching.